So he is right in that kid's face hitting that drum. And at first, it looked like, wow, these kids surrounded these Native Americans doing a ceremony and got right in their faces. That's what we thought. That's what it looked like.
Prior to this, the kids had already started to do like some of their, I would imagine, were their sports cheers at their sports games, which are all about them being hulkish. One guy took his shirt off and led all of them. I mean, it's a little bit scary.
Doesn't look good, right? So that, and everyone was like, that guy's, he's so maniacal by smiling.
To see, 100, because I think there's about 100 students there, right? At least, all guys cheering in unison as if they're some type of paramilitary.
We sure this isn't a
MAGA
Gillette
hats.
ad?
Yeah, no kidding. But
So watch, you hear the guy yelling.
See how much they respect you, Israel? Look all of them. All these Americans. Go ahead, what you say? That's right. Here come Gad. Here come Gad.
And so now here he comes, and he's going to walk right into the crowd of those kids. He's going to go right at them.
Here come Gad. Look at him.
And you hear those kids are already chanting. Before he even gets there, they're chanting something.
Make America great again hats. Look at the hats. Look at the hats.
the kids who apparently were not so brave and boisterous that they would get up in the face of the black Israelites had no problem doing this with an elderly Vietnam War vet native. And here's clips. Now, the one that everybody's seen is the one with the guy who's got the smirk on his face staring at the but this is a little bit more telling about what went on there based upon my going through those 2 hours of video.
So I'll throw it over to my panel. I'm here at the Miserable Liberal and Ron Placone.
You know, Jimmy, we started to talk about this today, and when I was reviewing some things that people were saying on Twitter, it was amazing the ugliness against the kids. That
Yes,
there
they're
was
kids.
this barrage of hateful vitriol against the kids from people who are
Somebody
in
wanted to
positions
dox them.
Yes, people.
Somebody was saying dox them, name them and dox them. No, they're children.
Literally 100 kids standing right in front of these guys, admonishing each other not to touch them, mocking them. And look, 15-year-old boys in any context can be huge a-holes. And what they're doing is despicable.
Ron, what do you think about this?
So I'm not as sold. I mean, I saw and I watched all that stuff from all the different angles, and the confrontation wasn't what it initially seemed from the 1-minute video. There's a lot of other angles. They were definitely mocking them. Like there's no question they were mocking them. And was it a transformative moment for some of them? I sincerely hope so.
So,
but I'm not
when you
convinced
say-
this was just a total misunderstanding.
Well,
I
it wasn't
think
like
these
they
kids were
walked-
mocking the kids were mocking the elder, because when he was interviewed afterwards, he was almost crying about it. I don't think he would feel that way if he wasn't being mocked.
When I started going forward, and that massive groups of people started separating and separating and moving aside to allow me to move out of the way or to proceed, this young fella put himself in front of me and wouldn't move. And so I could, if I took another step, I would be putting my person into his presence, into his space, and I would have touched him. and that would have been the thing that the group of people would have needed to spring on me.
So, but I mean,
But I mean, it was. I'm sure those kids didn't know what the hell that guy was doing. He started beating a drum, walked right at a kid, got right in his face, started beating the drum, and they're like, okay. And that one kid he smiled. He was like, well, and then some of them chanted along with. They kept the beat with his drum. He didn't come over and say, hey, you guys, this is a traditionally Native American song, and I'm going to sing it. And it's about peace, and I want to call. He just got right in someone. They didn't know and they're kids.
Well, and that's true too. And
so they don't know what the fuck's going on.
You know, I tweeted about it when I initially saw the first thing, and I said, you know, some of the kids who were mocking, I think they're going to look back on this and realize they were wrong.
Don't mock natives, elderly people.
So, and these are kids. Those are grown-ups, and they're televising that.
Well,
there's a football team called the Redskins in the National Football League. So, yeah, so when he came over and they're beating on their drums, and those kids didn't know what to do, they started beating with him, and they started singing like he was singing. I think I think you have to give the kids the benefit of the doubt in this situation, and I think you have to put yourself in that situation, because I know if I remember being in those situations similar, like, those kids didn't know what the F that guy was doing.
I've seen 15-year-old boys do all sorts of effed up things.
There was a time to stand up for indigenous people recently. It was DAPL, and America was silent. And so this is what they call virtue signaling. That's what this is called, right? That's what they always say, that, oh, you're virtue signaling, because you don't actually care. It's like when Chris Hayes tweets out how he's upset about no one was held responsible for the Iraq War. It's just virtue signaling.
If these 15-year-old kids were black or brown, the entire country right now would be having a moment of like, what's wrong with the culture of black and brown people that their parents don't care about the way these kids act? I mean, that's what we would be hearing.
I think this was just a misunderstanding. And that was a kid. So he didn't know how to handle himself. Some guy starts beating a drum in his face, and he stood there and smiled at him. Did other kids start chanting along? So some of them were doing school chants. Some of them had started to chant with the Native Americans.
Some of them were mocking them.
Some of
look,
them were mocking them. Some
again,
of them.
As far as this stuff, like, has this been over amplified? Is this selective outrage? Certainly. The people that were calling to dox the kids, that's absolutely ridiculous. They're children. But, you know, where I differ here, I do not believe that all those kids are innocent parties at all. I think they were mocking. And
listen, I'm just saying, in terms of the evidence of what I've seen, I've watched 2 hours of tape. And, but what they were clearly doing is mocking these guys.
They're doing tomahawk chop. And
yeah,
that sort of
exactly.
stuff.
This is one where you don't need to add the extra. Like, we've got it.
Right.